guys. Okay, I'm going to, this is the third time I've done this voiceover because I keep discovering things that are missing. I'm going to give you a disclaimer straight off the bat. This one is 23 minutes long. If you want to get a coffee, sit down and watch how I create these different techniques throughout the video. This one is a good teaching video. It's showing you a few different techniques that I think you could do at home, in your craft room, in your crafty space, your crafty nook. Now, what I'm doing here, I realize that not everyone has got a Cricut. Okay. They don't all have a Cricut or a Silhouette or a Brother Scan and Cut. I understand all that. You might have a manual die cut machine. You might have letters that you put through. I've got those as well. For the flow of the video, I've done this on my Cricut because I am lucky enough to have one. Now, what I'm doing is I have actually cut the title, which is "The Apple Didn't Fall Far from the Tree." I have cut that out 4 times on some heavy cardstock. Now, quite often, and I've done it in the past, when I've done this, I've only done 3 layers. The reason I've done 4 this time is because I want to heat emboss on top of my letters, and there's a couple of things that I want to do with it, and I wanted a thicker, is that thick is the brand, but essentially that's what I'm trying to replicate, is something along those lines. I realized that purchasing letters and stickers and words, sometimes that's the only option you have. And when you start out, that's the easiest way to get started and get going with your own scrapbooks, right? Which is fantastic, and I am not knocking it at all. I do it too. I have them, I buy them, but sometimes there is an alternative. And sometimes if you work out the dollars and cents side of things, and maybe you don't have a Cricut, and I realize not everybody does. So if you have if you invest in a manual die cut machine and you invest in a large lettering system, you could create this easily, and you could do it in all different colors, like the world is your oyster. So basically, I have added them to my smaller sticky mat. Now, I will give you a disclaimer right now. I am going to use a heat tool on this sticky mat. It will destroy your sticky mat. So do not use your good Cricut mat. If it's your last one you've got or whatever, don't use a heat tool on it. It will buckle it, and it will no longer go through your Cricut and effectively cut correctly. And you could end up damaging your Cricut. Alternatively, if you have purchased these mats from crafts online, that's where I got mine from. If you've purchased them, they are super cheap, and to me, it's an extra way that I can have an extra pair of hands. So this is where I decided exactly what I played with it, and this is where I decided what I wanted to do. Now, I have my title there. Now, I'm going to use Lindy's Magicals. Now, I have played with these a little bit, and I've sort of got a little bit lost, but what I decided to do is pull out one of my fine liner bottles. Now, you've seen me use these for all different things, but I wondered if by using these fine tip bottles, and you can see me just decanting 2 teeny tiny little scoops into the bottle, and this is where I'm having a look to see, so you can see it comes out, right? So now what I'm doing is I am just giving the slightest little tap just to get the tiniest bit on my letters, because I don't want to overly soak these letters in water, even though Lindy's Magicals works by adding water to it, right? So I only wanted to do a very light spritz, and you can see what's happened there. I've got this beautiful rainbow wicked out color that has just gone all over these letters, but I haven't actually painted them. And the Lindy's Magicals, these are the little tiny universal. I bought my bottles from Crafts Online. They actually come with the metal tip, the same, and that's, disclaimer, that's the tip I use on my art glitter glue. And I buy a half a dozen of these things when they're on sale. They fit perfectly, the pin works perfectly, and they cost you like $2 for 2 bottles. So that's one of my little secret trades that I've got going on in the background. That's what I do. Now, this is where I had made the decision that I was going to heat emboss on top of this mat. This mat gets ruined and it gets thrown in the bin. I was well aware that that was going to happen. I did decide that I was going to try and do it my usual way in here on my microfiber cloth. It was a disaster. Don't do it like that. So because these letters don't have a sticky backing on them, see, what happens is the embossing powder, when it melts, it becomes obviously slippery. And yeah, I had a little bit of trouble with it, but when I just did it straight on the mat, it was totally fine, and I should have just stuck to that right from the beginning and it would have worked perfectly. Now, I did do a couple of layers of clear embossing powder. I've got a couple of different ones. I've got Hero Arts, I've got some Crafter's Choice. I think I've got a Distress one there. Look, it's clear. I did actually buy a giant jar of the chunky one, and it is fantastic. If you melt it through properly, it is brilliant. I absolutely love it. Now, the other thing that I did on my other ones that I tried, I was able to, because the letters were bigger, I was able to, once you heat emboss and you can see it's all melty, you can just dunk it back in the embossing powder and you can build up your layers so it's really thick and glossy and it's got depth to it. I love it when it's like that. And that's what I managed to do with these letters. So, but underneath you've got that Lindy's Magicals color burst. You've got colors from yellow, orange, blue, green. The color that I actually used, so I've got the set that is called Drop Dead Diva. I got these from Crazy Craft Obsession, and I used Drop Dead Gorgeous Green on this particular layout. Green's not one that I normally would use a lot of, but it all comes together on this layout, which I absolutely love. So, as you can see my mat is all warped, and I was being ridiculous to really distort it to show you that's what's going to happen. So if you decide to do this, beware, it will happen. And you can't really use your the other thing I used was press and seal just to attach my letters down, but it just melts. Like, it just melts and just makes it even harder. So I know it looks really difficult here, but I was actually trying to show you how much it warps the mat, and that's how hot you have to have it. I had someone ask the other day, can you do embossing powders without a heat tool? And the short answer is no. Can you get that look using a different product? Yes. You can use glossy accents to go over your letters. The reason I chose not to do that is because glossy accents will reactivate the Lindy's Magicals. So it will reactivate it and then they would move. So that's why I went with the embossing powders. Now, this is where I come into my own. This is where I just decide to go for it, and I'm creating an apple tree on a hill. That's what I'm creating. So I'm just using 2 Distress Oxide colors. I'm mixing up Mowed Lawn and Rustic Wilderness. And I'm just ink blending on top of each other until I get the colors. You know, like when you look at the grass, it's never just green. It's a little bit dark, it's a little bit light. And to create layouts like this, I absolutely love it. It lets the artistic side of me just go to town and I can do whatever I like, and it's different. And that's my point of difference with the way I scrapbook. And I hope that is something that you guys get out of. You can see I've just torn a piece of paper, and that's my mask basically. And it allows me to get right up to the very edge and add depth, add a little bit of extra here and there. So there's my hill. Now we're going to put a tree on the hill. We're going to put an apple tree on the hill, because I'm literally there is no apples in these photos. There is nothing, but the title is The Apple Didn't Fall Far from the Tree. So play on words, I'm going for it, and this is what I decided to do. As you can see, when you create a tree trunk like this, technique wise, make sure you keep the brush going top to bottom. You have to go vertical. Otherwise, the timber look will not look up and down. You can't go across the grain, okay? You simply use your brushes and you go straight up. And then you bring in, I started off with gathered twigs. Then I added a little bit of walnut stain. And now I'm coming in with some ground espresso just to darken up that sort of tree knot, so to speak. And just adding a little bit more depth to some of the waves, so to speak, that are in the tree. Now, at the moment, I'm just adding a bit more down the bottom so that the tree is actually sitting on the grass, which makes a whole lot more sense. And you can see that's where I'm going to put my photos down the side, but I'm keeping them out of the way for the moment. Now, this is the part where you have to kind of, you've got to think about outside. So this is not, I'm not trying to create a fake tree. I'm trying to create a more realistic tree. Now, when you look at a tree, do you see just solid leaves? No, you don't. You see bits of light poking through. You see it a little bit lighter green, a shade of, you know, like there's, when you look up at a full apple tree, it's dappled. It's not just one color. So what I did is, and you may see this leaf punch if you watched last week, earlier in the week I did a video, and it was, I used this leaf punch and I created pinwheels, and this is the same leaf punch, and this time I'm actually using it as a leaf. Surprise, surprise. Now, what am I doing here? I am just organically dumping the two different colored leaves that I've punched out and the apples, and I just sprinkled them onto the page just to get an organic feel as to where things are going to land, because you could fall into the trap of going along and doing a light green line and a dark green line, and trees aren't like that. Trees are all over the place. So subsequently, what I ended up doing was I was adding these and I was doing different bits and pieces, and I started this yesterday, and I came back into my craft room this morning and I was continuing to put things down, and I had to quickly, I'm so annoyed at myself, I had to quickly go and let Dory outside, one of our dogs. And when I came back in, I forgot to hit record again. I'm so annoyed with myself. I could BS you and I could say that I had a glitch. I've got a corrupted file. I could come up with so much BS. Guess what? The BS is this. None of that happened. It wasn't a technical error at all. It was purely me. I didn't press record. Oh, but that's okay. I think we have enough footage that you will get the idea. So please don't think that I've edited out any of this, because I haven't. That is not what I do. I am 100% here to show you real time. and I didn't edit it out. I simply was a dunderhead and didn't turn the camera on. And by the time I realised, I had already put my title down. And I was like, no. I was so frustrated with myself. But that's okay. So I was literally, all I'm doing is putting down leaves and popping apples in. Now, the apples don't have stalks on them on the tree. Why? Well, because they'd be hidden anyway. So I didn't bother about putting the stalks on there. But the apples on the ground, I do put stalks on because you can see them. So I decided to go ahead and I'm literally, see how I'm just putting some of the dark green and some of the light green and sort of tucking the dark green ones underneath, because naturally when you're looking at a tree, that's what they would look like. This is basic cut and paste stuff, guys. Like, it's truly not that hard, truly, honestly. And I know I have this really annoying habit, and I know I do, where I say it's not hard, guys. And I know there's things that I look at people doing and there's not a chance. Like, I could not be a doctor. I could not work on a computer in an office all day. I watch my sister-in-law. She is amazing. Like, I've got 3 sister-in-laws, but 2 of them work with admin, and I'm in awe. They are amazing with numbers and running offices and, computers and computer programs and all that sort of stuff and all the wordy stuff. I'm useless at that. I'm good with art. I'm good with my hands. And, and I don't think we should have to apologize for that, because I think it takes all kinds of people to make things run, for life in general. And this is what I love to do. So this is me. This is where I came back this morning, because I have my jumper on. You can see that on my arms. And it's very, very shortly that I jumped up. I was doing really well too. I was like, I'd worked out a bit of a system, and I had a second wind this morning because I'd obviously had dinner, got my kids off to school this morning, had breakfast, did all that. And look at that. Can you see how much you missed? Oh, I'm so mad at myself. So I realized at this point, so then I decided that I would go through with my Distress watercolor pencils, and I'm using Rustic Wilderness and peeled paint. And what I decided to do was create some extra shadow on the leaves. Now, the 2 green colors that I have used on the tree are Creative Memories colors. They Creative Memories cardstock. And I'll be completely honest with you, the watercolor pencil didn't really do much of anything. It didn't really, you can see it if you look at it up close, but it didn't really do a lot. I thought it would. I thought I would end up with, especially with Rustic Wilderness, like, it's a dark green, but it sort of just soaked into the leaves. But, I was using the watercolor to create shadow, and I suppose you can see a little bit of it, I guess. But, yeah, so I did this, and I really enjoyed this part of it as well, because this is just having fun. And you can see my title is on there now. I'm so sorry. Look, it was just me gluing it down. You really didn't miss anything dramatic, but I did want to show you that, I get it all on there. You can see the little apples on the ground now have their stalks on them. So that was cut with the cut file, the little stalks. So all the apples have stalks, but I didn't use the ones on the tree because I thought, can't see them anyway. So, and yeah, so I really enjoyed doing this layout. I totally 100%, I know I do every so often, I do a layout that's more in depth, but I wanted to show you a couple of different techniques, how you can use Lindy's Magicals. Even though I use them quite often in a very abstract background, I wanted to use them in a way that everyone puts titles on their layouts most of the time. Not every layout has a title, but sometimes you want an extra special title. And if you buy Lindy's Magicals, those things go forever because the amount of colour that it took me to add to these titles, it was nothing. Like, it's the tiniest little bit. And if you get those bottles, that is, and I will honestly say, that is the easiest way and the least messy way of using the product, because using the little spoon and tapping it, you just use way too much product. So yeah, I'm going to do another page using them and using them with that technique, and I think I'll definitely be a lot happier with the product and possibly even reach out and buy another pack with some different colors. So now I'm getting very, very close. I decided to put a little bit of a shadow. I used, what color did I use? Fired Brick in the Distress watercolor pencils. And I just put a bit of a shadow on the bottom of the apples because, you know, sunlight would be at the top, so they'd be a bit shadowed. And then I put a little bit underneath the title just to give it something to sit on. And this is it, guys. This is the close-up. Let me know what you think. Is this something that you would consider doing? Is this a layout that interests you? Is this something that you would like to see more of? Something I don't know. There might be something else you want to see. Write it in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know if you like this slightly longer style of video. Obviously, if I hit record, it would have been a tiny bit longer. But let me know if this is something that interests you, because I'm always looking to do completely different things, and I absolutely love bringing you different ideas and techniques, especially ones that will help enhance your scrapbooking layouts. Now, in the description below, you will see my Facebook and my Instagram links. You can jump over Facebook. We have got an awesome community over there, and everyone helps everyone, and nobody's mean and nasty. It is fantastic. So the other thing that I would love is if you could smash that like button if you got value out of this layout. If this is something, this video gave you value and you gave me your valuable time, did you get something back out of it? Let me know below if this was good value. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate each and every one of you, and I will chat to you again soon. Bye for now.